Sure.
Thank you, Rabbi, for reminding me.
No problem.
Really
Yes,
phony.
Marcia.
Wait. Hang on here. Jeez, cell phone. Even today, we have the same situation where it's hard to grasp the idea of a God without any, what is it, corporeal presence, something that just, it's an idea, and I think for these people, Sai is perfectly right, is that they had no exposure to anything even close to that. That wasn't anything in their, in their world that would have it, pointed to a non, again, corporeal thing or item or whatever, an idea of God, of a God that is one who also didn't, represent the kitchens or the health or the crops or whatever, the God of this, thus, or the other thing. That's really hard. That's a leap. That's a major leap for people to have to make.
All right. Good. Donna or Nan?
Oh, we're on page 80, Evelyn.
80.
Thank you.
And we just finished the left-hand column.
Right.
So shall I go on?
Any other comments? Okay, I guess go on.
All right, do we want the box where it says the masses must have a leader? Peli.
We can try it.
Okay, the masses must have a leader. This is from Peli, yes. Moses is a few hours late, and they, without much hesitation, with little reservation, unashamedly rewrite history. This calf is your God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Moses, the teacher and lawgiver, is all but forgotten. How swift and how shocking and how typical of mass psychology. They, the masses, must have a leader. What a gap between Moses and a handmade calf. But to them, this gap does not matter. Make us a God who shall go before us. They are ready to follow blindly any leader, be he a Moses or a golden calf. What the people might have said, and that's from Peli Torah Today. What the people might have said. Philosopher Martin Buber suggests that the people were in a state of panic and said to one another, Moses has vanished completely. He said he was going aloft to the God up there, and when we need the God down here, just where we are. But he has not come back, and it must be supposed that the God of his has made away with him, since something or other between them was clearly not as it should have been. What are we to do now? We have to take matters into our own hands. An image has to be made, and then the power of God will enter the image, and there will be proper guidance.
Okay. And that comes from Martin Buber.
Martin Buber.
Okay, comments about either of these, Peli or Buber? Nan?
I don't understand why they would choose a golden calf instead of another person to replace Moses.
Oh, okay, right.
I
So
mean,
you think,
all right, Moses didn't come, we need another leader. Why go to something that's artificial, that's not real?
okay, good, very good, Dan, very good. That's a wonderful idea. So Moses disappears. The logical thing is to hire somebody new, right?
But
Why? What? Yeah. Rich raised his hand and then he disappeared suddenly. Rich.
I'm tying my shoe.
Oh, okay.
But I think the reason could be that what we're really looking at is the all the idolatry that's present within the environment around them. And what they're looking for now is assurance that their God, it could be, is still powerful. And with Moses gone, they've lost contact with the one person who intercedes for them with God. So, hence this sort of idolatry. At least that's my theory. It's as good as
Okay.
anybody.
So this has to do more about God than it does with Moses. So,
Right.
like Nan says, they could hire another Moses, but they don't want to because Moses is a representative of God.
Right.
So, and it's God that they want to get rid of, not Moses. Or it's more God that they want to get rid of rather. So it's like if you have a contract with IBM and you have a full-time rep, who helps you to integrate IBM products into your corporation, and you hate IBM, everything then none of their systems work well. The rep disappears, he gets sick. You don't want a new rep, you want a new company. So in this case, we're trying to get rid of not so much Moses, that too, but mostly God. We want to get rid of God. Is that agreed?
Well, I'm not sure that's the concept. What they're maybe trying to do is use the calf as sort of an intermediary between themselves and God, sort of a symbol. At least that's my theory. You remember, because I mean they're really they're the only monotheistic religion in the area. In fact, probably in the world at that time. Yeah, so they're emulating what's going elsewhere, and they might still believe in God as a monotheistic concept, but Moses is gone. He's the one who intercedes. Oh, let's build a calf so that maybe God will like this.
Okay, so you disagree with me.
Well, the concept that they don't like God, it's the concept that maybe this is their God, monotheistic God, and gets stronger than anybody else, and it's gold, and gold is very precious.
Okay, Cy and then Evelyn. Welcome, Evelyn.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
have to remember that God was a very new and individual thing at that point, and
Yeah.
that the other civilizations uh, around them were still believing in idols, and so this is nothing more than what was going on at the time. God was new. This is something I mentioned before. They knew nothing about God. The idol was the thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the idol will add to our ability to interact with the deity above, and we don't lose anything, we gain. We only gain. So what's the problem with that way of thinking? So in our context, we could say we're gonna have a little we're just gonna pray to the ark with the Torahs and through that reach God. So what's so terrible, really? Evelyn, your turn.
Well, my feelings are since they were told that God is made in man's image, therefore they're associating the symbol of the vision of man or the form of man with God. And therefore they have lost faith in the fact that God is represented by man. And therefore, if they wish to worship something, they're going to worship something that they're actually more familiar with. They're more familiar with the Egyptian concept of gods in animal form. And therefore, in a way, they're regressing to use the concept of a calf. And gold, of course, does represent wealth and importance. And therefore, they would they would create this idol in the form of an animal that they felt would be more representational to suit their needs. Again, they're denying that God is in the form of man or man is in the form of God. And this is their way of expressing it.
Interesting. Nan, Marcia, Steve. Marcia.
I think that I agree with Evelyn. Yeah, I think that this is what they were used to. They were used to some sort of an animal representing some sort of a representation of something to worship, whether there a lot like in the Egyptian society, didn't they have, it was usually some sort of a stylized bird or something like that, an eagle or something of that, or man body with a bird head on it or something of that sort,
Right.
you know.
Or so it could, so it wasn't the calf that was so important. It was having some sort of animal intermediary, that provide a certain sense of immediacy, of comfort, of familiarity.
It's something you can touch. It's something, it's
Mhm.
really hard to go to a God that's there, but you can't see and feel him and look at him.
So do you think that's a problem in our services on Friday nights that we're praying to a God you can't see? I mean, you have the ark, you have the Torahs, you have the eternal light, you have the menorahs, you have even the Ten Commandments. You've got a rabbi, you've got a cantor, you've got pews, you have a social hall, you have an oneg. Is none of that useful if you don't have some sort of
We've got,
intermediary that you can pray to?
we've got 5,000 years on them, though,
Mhm.
of adapting to the idea. They didn't have that.
So you think for us today it's fine?
Yes, better.
Richard, Evelyn, somebody? Is there
I
anyone who
Yeah, I
thinks that?
agree with Marcia. We have had 5,000 years more. Let's just say we've had the concept of accepting these symbols um, as a representation of our religion, but we've had all of these years to come to the conclusion that we don't need we need symbols to as a sense of identification. However, the concept of a God that we can't touch, that we can't feel, we have accepted that a long time ago, but it was a long time in coming. And so how we feel about it today was not how the Hebrews felt about it 5,000 years ago. And for them, that was a new concept that was difficult to accept as such.
But you don't have any problems today, Evelyn, with praying to a God that doesn't have corporeality that you
No,
can't
not at all.
touch.
Not at all. There is a supreme being that we can't feel or touch, but that I feel has control of the universe, shall we say, and is something beyond our comprehension, actually, is greater than what our minds can comprehend. And this is, whether you call it a deity, a supreme being, something that is greater than what humans can conceive of. And in my mind, yes, there is something out there. Call it a god, call it whatever you wish, but there is something far greater than we as human beings are able to envision as such.
Okay. Uh, Steve?
Well, I mean, typically change is hard for people, whether it's 2,000 years ago or even if it's today. You got a new boss, you got this or that. Change is difficult and people do not like change. Therefore, that's, to me anyway, the golden calf refers to the change in their lifestyle, the change in what they used to you do. So,
Well, when I went to Jamaica, they were using this prayer book that had been put together by a lay person years ago, which was literally cut and paste, which mixed up Spanish Portuguese ritual with Reform ritual. And one of the things I planned to do that had been agreed upon that we were going to make a new prayer book using the same principles. Was I able in 5 years to make a new prayer book? No. People just didn't want change. This was the prayer book they were used to, and they just some of them some of them had this reason, some of them had that reason, most of them, it just, the whole idea of change was frightening. And I guess I didn't adequately take into account the need to lobby and explain and reassure, over and over and over for a long time. And maybe Moses here, he just can't go away for 40 days and 40 nights until he's really sure that these people are prepared for that. And he figured as Harvey Fields made a long list here of everything that had gone so well.
Mhm.
Do you figure after all these things that Moses can disappear for a while and it would be fine? But it wasn't. Rich, Donna, any comments? Okay, if not, Marcia, would you continue reading? We're on the bottom of 80 on the right corner.
Philosophy Yehuda Halevi agrees with this assessment of their situation and claims that only 3,000 of the 600,000 people liberated actually requested that Aaron build the golden calf.
Whoa. Whoa. So is that possible? Is that logical that you can have
No.
such a small group that influences so much history so much?
Well, how many
Or
people could be around them? I mean, you can't have 600,000 people. They didn't have public, speaker systems in those days or whatever. How would you even notify 600,000 people about all this?
well, they according to the Torah, all 600,000 were there at Mount Sinai. They were in the camp, and the camp, was right by the mountain, and there was thunder and lightning. It was just clear that something big was happening, so they didn't have to send emails to everybody. People just kind of knew. If you were in the area and everybody was in the area and you were living in tents, so it wasn't like you were living in this massive house and with your headphones on. So anyone in the area knew something was happening and they'd come out of their tents and they'd see. That's my thinking.
Yeah.
A
So
lot of
3,000 out of 600,000. Evelyn.
When you have a smaller group of people who are very outspoken, very forceful, and insist that their side is the correct side, they will badger and persist in insisting on that long enough and hard enough to eventually sway the majority. It's happening today in our society and all over the world. So this has always been true, where you have a group of people or a leader, someone who thinks he's a leader, being very forceful, insisting that what he says is valid and true, you will find that eventually people will comply. It's the easy way out. And so this is why you get conformity in the society, even if the message is wrong.
Yeah, well, I saw in the news this morning some Welsh singer at a concert started singing, leading everybody there at the concert in singing From the River to the Sea,
Oh my
Whoa.
which clearly, says they want to kill all the Jews in Israel. And then it was, recorded and everything. And then she has the chutzpah to say, oh no, it's a message of peace. So you can say it's like 1984, where you can say anything and just deny that it means what it means, and you just say it means the opposite. And who are you to say it doesn't? So I guess if you've got, I mean, whatever everybody is very concerned what Taylor Swift might say or do, because she has such enormous influence that if she, comes out and favors a presidential candidate, that could sway the entire presidential election. And we, of course, know social media if people on kids on TikTok see something on TikTok, most of them will just accept that and support that if it's a cute video of a cat jumping up and down.
Mhm.
So I guess that is true. So if you have 3,000 people out of 600,000 that if they believe anything, they can organize and they can influence everyone else. I guess it's possible.
I agree. I agree.
Well, we
Yeah,
see it.
but
every day.
I would hope though that people, are smart enough to maybe see the truth, whether it's, or the ulterior motive or whatever, and for whatever issue you could talk about. But I mean, like Evelyn said, it's pervasive in our culture right now.
Mhm.
The ability to absorb information and analyze it and try and sift the veracity of it is a very sophisticated skill. And many people do not have this skill.
Mhm.
What you see is what you get as far as they're concerned. Whatever they see must be true, and they don't take the time or the trouble, or they may not have the ability to be able to take this information and say, this guy is lying. This one is maybe telling some of the truth. The ability to analyze information is a very sophisticated skill, and therefore most people don't have it. And that's why you get the result of a few who do have this skill to be able to manipulate larger groups in the populace.
Okay, Sai.
Uh, Moses, Moses was selling something to the people. Why should they buy it? I mean, what was so great about this idea? What did it do for those people? He was convincing them of what he thought was important. 300,000 people or 30,000, whatever the number was strong enough and thought enough to think that it wasn't important. They didn't believe in it. And the question then becomes, what's wrong with that?
Mhm. I guess it's different conceptions of religion.
That's right.
Um, yeah, I mean,
You're making me very discouraged by saying that, Si.
well, the winners write the history, right? So,
Right.
I mean, the Hindus have, statues of Ganesh, with the elephant head and other um, representations of God. They see themselves as monotheistic, or some Hindus see themselves as monotheistic anyway, right? That these are just representations of aspects of God. So I guess it's all in how you frame it, right? And so are these 3,000 people necessarily so evil? I mean, Richard, if some of these guys had come to us, would you accept them into our congregation as full members?
If they're paid the dues, sure.
I knew you were going to say that.
We'll have to talk to Bobby about this. We should squeeze some extra money from him. No,
Okay, Marsh.
yeah,
Yes.
you're right. All these concepts, people follow, different things. I mean, we look at the modern times, how some of these crazy people, like remember in Guyana, 1980, that guy, gave all his people cyanide or strychnine.
Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid.
Jones or something.
Jones, yeah,
Jones.
Jones.
And
Yeah.
Jones.
And
Well-
just recently in Africa, a guy who was a preacher, he was just arrested. He let a lot of his followers starve to death on purpose. He said it's good for you to starve to death.
Hmm.
That's what happened, kids and adults.
Mhm.
So a lot of people follow, and the concept of 600,000 people. I just think of the logistics of trying to march through the desert with 600,000 people. That's that's really something.
Yeah, well, it was actually heads of households, so it was more like 3 million. Evelyn.
No, I was just thinking that the group pressure, people sometimes, let's say they are born in a Jewish family and they decide to take up Hinduism or some other religion. We are permissive enough, not the Orthodox, but the Reform, are permissive enough to have someone not necessarily leave the group, but accept the concepts of other religions. However, in most religion, if you deny what religion you and your group are part of, you are shunned, you are kicked out, you are no longer a member. And the desire to be part of a group for a human being is so strong that most people will deny it. There are plenty of people who may be born into a religion and decide that they want to leave, but because of group pressure, they cannot. However, in our own congregation, we have members who were originally born in another religion and decided that Judaism was the religion for them, just as we have Jewish members who have decided that their Judaism isn't that strong, and if they marry outside the faith, if the kids are raised outside in another religion, that's okay too. So I think it depends upon the group pressure. In Europe, where you had the shtetl and the group pressure was so intense, you didn't even consider. Remember Fiddler on the Roof, where one of the daughters marries a Russian and converts to the Russian Orthodox. I mean, this was a disgrace, a shanda. You sat shiva for them. So again, it depends upon the society that you are living in and what the group pressure is as to what you worship, how you worship, and what you accept and don't accept as such. And going back to the Hebrews, I don't think the religion was just first trying to be established. And so you had this particular group with Moses disappearing for 40 days. They were able to take control of the group because the group mentality had not yet been solidified, shall we say.
Okay. Agreed. So solidification of a society takes place at a certain part of the maturation process, and that becomes very important. So Moses should not have left when he did, right? That is, everybody agree that? Yes,
Kind of inopportune.
Probably.
this is God's fault, this is Moses' fault, but either or both of them should have said, we can't do 40 days. It's too long a time period. The people have not solidified. What was the term you used, Evelyn? Their society had not solidified yet. You can't just go away that long.
Yeah, you will have other factions that will take over.
That there's these 3,000 people. That's a lot of people, even if percentage-wise it's very small, and they're determined. And if you go away, they'll start doing who knows what. All right. Yes, Marcia.
Wait, 1 minute. But Aaron was not a good assistant, if you will, to Moses, and that he was the backup person to Moses at that point, and he was not able to speak to the problem, and that's part of it too.
Poor leadership.
Yeah, I mean, he was the second in command basically, and he when called up, when this thing all came up, he did not step up and say, hey, this is, wait and this and that, or we don't know that he did, certainly wasn't effective if he tried. Does
Okay.
he not ever get I'm sure he gets the blame somewhat, doesn't he, Rabbi?
Not really.
Oh, well, that's a
The
shame.
chief priest does. The chief
I've always been complaining about that for many years. This guy is like Teflon. He's clearly at fault. He should have been executed by God, and he gets promoted.
They used to say that about Nixon, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Nixon had it until he didn't have it, but in the end,
Yeah,
but
because I mean,
Netanyahu is still
you've got
going,
somebody there who's supposed to be holding the fort, basically, as they say,
right?
and he didn't.
Netanyahu had 3 corruption charges, all of them very credible, and he's still chugging along just fine. So some people can really, and I won't give any American examples because we're trying to avoid politics, but there's some people are able to go forever, no matter what they do, right?
Yes.
And other people yeah, there's Congress people who've had a lot of trouble over and over and over, and they're doing fine. And then there's others that don't. I mean, not that I'm sympathetic to that George Santos in Staten Island, but they got him out of there pretty quickly. Even though it was, I think, done by his own party.
Long Island, I think.
It was,
Long Island.
it was Long
Don't
Island.
blame
It's
poor
from
Staten Island,
Queens.
They got enough going.
It's Queens and Queens and Long
Long
Island, a largely Jewish area too.
Right.
Well, that's why one of his many lies was he claimed that one of his grandparents were Holocaust survivors, his grandmother, and then they found out she was born and raised in Brazil. She never left Brazil. She was Catholic from birth.
Knew all that stuff.
She never was anywhere near the Holocaust, but it sounded like a great story. But anyway, they got him out. But Aaron, I mean, how much more responsible could he be? I mean, he's guilty, 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 but yeah,
the chief priest.
So I
yeah.
think we ought to mention also that the women did not contribute their gold to this golden calf. Because either they
So-
knew better or they just were not going to do that.
Good point, Marcia.
So
But
maybe they didn't want to support the cause, or maybe they didn't want to give up what jewelry they
either
had.
way,
That's more
If
like,
I had nice earrings, gold earrings, I might support the cause, but I don't want to lose my earrings.
never
They
gonna
had to
get
be
them back again. They're melted onto this.
to make a gold calf.
One
Yeah.
at a time, please. One at a time, please.
Yes, Richard, I'm sorry we couldn't hear you.
Well, that's okay. Let's continue.
Okay, Marcia, you can
think
read
we're
that
up to-
line again.
Am I up to furthermore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Furthermore, argues Halevi, the creation of the golden calf was not such a serious sin. After all, he explained, making images or using them for worship was accepted religious practice during ancient times. He said that. God had commanded the people to create the cherubim and place them above the ark. If the people made a mistake, Halevi says, it was not in refusing to worship God, but in their impatience. Instead of waiting for the return of Moses or for a message from God, they took matters into their own hands and acted as if they had been commanded to replace their leader with a golden idol. It was for their impatience, not for creating an idol, that they were punished. Yehuda Halevi's carefully reasoned excuse for the behavior of the Israelites is very different in tone from the criticism offered them by the author of Psalm 106. Speaking of their liberation, the psalmist writes, God delivered them from the foe, redeemed them from the enemy, but they soon forgot God's deeds. There was envy of Moses in the camp and of Aaron. They made a calf at Horeb and bowed down to a molten image. They exchanged their glory for the image of a bull that feeds on grass. They forgot God who saved them, who performed great deeds in Egypt. In other words, the creation and worship of the golden calf by the Israelites was a brazen act of disloyalty to the God who had freed them from Egyptian bondage.
Okay. So this is pretty amazing in its own self. Who is he saying criticizing who? Who is criticizing who, according to this last bit?
They're criticizing God, I guess.
Yeah.
And who is the person who,
The-
where's this criticism coming from?
Those 3,000 people.
And where's that criticism coming from? What text is he citing?
Psalms, it says.
Psalm
There
106.
you go. So he's saying that in the Bible, in the Psalms, there's so whoever wrote that Psalm 106 is criticizing something that took place in the Torah in another place. Isn't that incredible?
Why is it incredible?
You have a part of the Bible criticizing something in part of the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when
I find that
Rabbi,
quite interesting.
Psalm 106 was written later, much later.
Later, yeah.
Maybe.
Why maybe?
Well, just because it comes chronologically later in the, the Tanakh. I mean, it's later in if we have Torah, prophets, writings, it's in the writings, but I don't have proof that it was written later. It probably might have been. In this case, it obviously was because the writer of the Psalm there knows about what happened in
Right.
the book of Exodus. So it had to have been later, at least the story had to be later. But you have cases where maybe the story of Moses was written before the story of Abraham, even though maybe, even though in the Torah chronologically Abraham comes first, but that doesn't prove that story was written first.
That's very
That
confusing.
makes
Yeah.
Well, it's a complicated text that has a complicated history. But just because one thing's in an order doesn't mean that's the order that it was written in originally. Okay, so anyway, the psalm is saying that there was the emotion here that's causing the problem is what?
The emotion that's causing the problem. Well, this is
The emotion that's causing the problem.
abandonment, I guess. They feel abandoned.
Okay, abandonment is one. I'm thinking about something else, but yeah. What? Yes, Nan?
Were the people impatient?
Okay. We
I'm
have
saying that
abandonment, impatience,
Lack of faith in Moses.
lack of faith.
Abandoned God.
In
God.
Psalm, there it says there was envy of Moses in the camp and of Aaron. Right? Envy.
Yeah.
But these other things are good too. What did you say? Abandonment, and you said impatience.
Mm.
So, and then I'm saying envy. So, which of the three is worse? Feelings of abandonment? I mean, that's not your fault. Jennifer Lopez this morning came out and she said she felt her parents didn't give her enough love growing up.
Every child feels that.
Particularly if you have another sib. The other sib always gets the most love.
All right. Well, parents do the best they can, but they have other stuff going on at the same time. They've got jobs, they've got a spouse, they have hobbies. They can't devote all their time to their children. Yes, Nan.
of the three that you mentioned, I mean, I would think envy would be the worst, because isn't that one of the deadly sins, when they talk about envy and jealousy and oh, so-and-so has more than I have, and, it's not fair, and the unfairness of it. So I think it's the envy that's the worst,
Yeah.
or the, most,
But we can't help it, right? It's a feeling. I'm driving on the
Correct.
road and I see a guy in a Model T Ford. I want that car so badly. I feel envious. I mean, I can't help it. Yes, Evelyn.
Envy becomes the motivating factor for capitalizing on the populace's feeling of abandonment, insecurity, and all of the other feelings that they have. And so the feeling of envy would create those people who feel envious to control and manipulate. And so that becomes the motivating factor for insisting that the golden calf be built, because again, they made sure that the people felt this insecurity, and that they promised that the golden calf would solve their problems.
Okay.
Gee, I'm envious of your solution.
Well,
Okay, I guess back to you, Marcia.
Okay. Many of the early rabbinic interpreters of Torah agree with the author of Psalm 106. Building the golden calf was an act of idolatry, and the people's worship of it was nothing less than a signal that they accepted idolatry and were defying the second of the 10 commandments. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, that you shall not bow down to them or serve them. But they hadn't gotten the 10 commandments yet.
Right.
Nan made a very good point a few minutes ago. What did you say, Nan?
that envy is one of the seven deadly sins.
Which is one of the 10 commandments.
Before that, about Moses, and you said, why didn't they pick a new man to?
Oh, and another person. Why did they not choose another man to lead them and go for an inanimate object?
So Nan made a really good point, and now Marcia's making a really good point. So how could you hold them liable to a commandment that they were about to receive, right? So
yeah.
like I know that I'm going to ask all of you at the end of this session to lead sessions of this Torah study while I'm away the next couple of weeks. But you don't know that yet because I haven't asked you yet. So how can you even respond to something you haven't yet been requested to do? I mean, that seems really extreme, right?
Except we do know because Steve mentioned it.
All right, then I guess it's not so extreme.
He gave a
So,
pre-sequel, right, Steve? I wasn't on.
But I think Richard said yes already, and Evelyn said yes already, and
Evelyn came late, so she has no
Don't blame
excuse.
it on Evelyn.
But your point is very well taken, right? How can you reject a commandment that you haven't yet received?
Aren't we placing today's values and what we know today, and assuming that these people already have them, but as Marcia pointed out, they haven't gotten them yet. So how can we blame them in a sense?
Right. So yes, exactly.
Well, but they were supposed to be believing in God as a single concept, as monotheistic already. And they were just getting
Must have been really hard.
God, all the things that they have to do. So with the idolatry, maybe they were no longer becoming monotheistic. They were trying to follow the religion of the Egyptians or the various other indigenous religions within the area where they were located, like the one in the back.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, right? You want to fit in.
This was what they knew.
that,
And so if you see everyone else doing something, you want to do it too. In one way or another, right?
The next paragraph is pretty much what we've been saying.
Exactly.
Okay, Marsh, you want to read it?
As to why the Israelites chose idolatry, some of the early rabbis suggest that they found the worship of a god without form, shape, and color very difficult. They wanted a god like the Egyptians, one that was carried from place to place, one of glistening gold, a bull symbolizing power that would march before them and, they believed, protect them. So they came to Aaron and said, "Come, make us a god." Because the Israelites sought to imitate the Egyptians and practice idolatry, say the rabbis, they were punished for their sin.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
So a bull symbolizes power. How does a bull symbolize power?
Well, gold was the most expensive thing they had, I guess.
No,
Well,
bull,
No, a
bull.
bull is
Bull-
strong.
Strong.
A bull is very strong
Yeah.
and
Probably this-
big and
Why not an elephant
Well,
or a hippo?
bulls
but a
were
bull could be used to, pull a carriage. There's strength
plows, maybe.
and plows and stuff like that. Whereas an elephant, it's pretty hard to get an elephant hooked up to something to move it. A bull is easier.
It's more practical.
and elephants, I doubt, existed in that part of the world at that time anyway.
Mhm.
What they used when animals symbolized strength to them, and the bull was a readily available animal. And so it made sense that they would use that. It was common knowledge that they all raised cattle and they had bulls, and some of the bulls obviously were very strong. So, okay, it
All
became
right, so now it says that the Israelites, or at least some of them, they wanted to make this bull out of gold. So what do? It's very clearly here says they didn't just make the bull, they went to who?
Aaron.
Aaron. And they
Aaron
said
the
to
weak.
Aaron, come make us a god. So who's responsible? Therefore, isn't this proof that Aaron is directly responsible?
Mhm.
Well, he's
He
doing what
should-
he's been asked to do.
yeah.
Yeah, but are leaders supposed to do what they're asked to do? So,
Well, it depends, but in this case, I think it's proving that Aaron was not a great leader. I mean, he didn't say no. He didn't
Plead his case.
plead his case or say no. We have to believe in God, and God does not want us to do this. We will wait for Moses. Maybe it's taken God a little, maybe Moses and God are having a little bit of a negotiation session going on, and that's why it's taking, so long. Because I honestly don't think that Moses, when he left, in my opinion, I don't believe that he expected to be gone for as long as he was.
his
But we
flight was
don't-
canceled. His flight
Well,
was canceled 3 times.
Well, we don't know what happened though. And like I said, maybe God is having a bargaining session or a discussion with him on certain things, because we never really know, even when Moses comes down, we never know what happened during those 40 days.
Hmm.
He was gone and now he's back.
Well, he was up there talking with God. It takes, we spend an hour and a half a week on this and we don't get very far. If you wanted to create the entire Torah and interpretive framework, Clearly, an hour and a half's not sufficient. And so you'd need weeks and weeks, and lots of ice cream. Marcia.
What you just said, I never understood how they could have created the Torah at that point, which basically saying they're pre-writing the history of Israel at that point. God forbid.
So say that again. You can't understand
You
how
say
they
that
could.
you said that the Torah was written at that point, and I've heard
Well, that's what some interpreters
so
suggest.
basically the Torah it's pre-writing history. I don't know how you would express that. It's writing what's going to be, because it's all the stories of the Bible are in
Correct.
there. Okay,
But some believe that only the Ten Commandments were written. Some believe not even that. So it depends who you are and what you want to believe. Um, but if it's only the Ten Commandments, then why did it take Moses 40 days up there? That's a lot of time just to write down 10 little commandments.
you're writing in
On the
stone.
first set of the tablets, God did the writing. So Moses didn't even have to do that, and God can do things instantaneously. So couldn't they have just done it? I mean, even if God was serving cappuccino and even if he baked his own cake, you could probably still do that and schmooze and do the Ten Commandments in 3 or 4 hours, surely. So do you really need
Think
that
of
much
how
time?
long it took to write the Constitution.
That was man, not God.
Right. So here you have God dictating to Moses. Moses doesn't say to God, maybe you should change the second or third commandment and make it a little less harsh. Moses is supposed to learn from God, not question him and not act as a political consultant or editor. God doesn't need that sort of things, presumably. Okay, Nan, comment? Okay, Marcia, back to you.
Okay, so I'm up to some interpreters, I
Yep.
think. Some
Yes.
interpreters put forward the observation that it was the men, not the women, who were guilty of creating the idol and worshiping it. They point out that Aaron cleverly looked for a way to divert the men from their desire for an idol, because Aaron knew that the women would refuse to donate their gold rings to such a project. He deliberately told the men, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives." As Aaron had hoped, the women were unwilling to donate their rings. "We will not give our rings to create an idol," they told the men. So the men removed the rings from their own ears and built the golden calf. Other interpreters blame Aaron, not the Israelites, for the sin of creating the golden calf. They maintain that when the people began to speak critically of Moses and his failure to return after 40 days, Aaron failed to provide an explanation to calm their fears.
Okay, stop there. So even if Aaron doesn't know, you might say it would be still good policy to make something up. So, like I just made something up. I said Moses, his flight was postponed 3 times. Now, did I know this to be true? No, I made it up. But,
Really?
you know, but at least it'll calm Richard down for a few days. Okay, so Richard is like, "Where's Moses? Get this Schmedrick back here." I'll say, "Richard, give it another 3, 4 days. He's in Japan and there's a strike. They've had to postpone 3 flights. He's at the Narita airport. He's coming. So that'll buy me a little time." If Moses eventually shows up, it doesn't really matter where he was. If he doesn't show up at some point, I'm going to have a big problem with Richard. But at least I delayed it as long as I could. That's something, isn't it? Yes, Evelyn and then Marcia.
I have a question about semantics. In one part of the story that we are reading, they refer to the idol as a bull. In another part, they refer to it as a calf. There is a vast difference between the two. If you look at, the head of a calf, which is a young bovine as such, and the bull, which would be a large, mature individual, there's a symbolism there that I don't understand. Why is it refer one way and then then as a calf the other way? Doesn't make sense.
Okay, egel is the Hebrew word. Let me see what I can tell you is the translation used for egel. Chet egel. It translates here as calf.
Which is a young animal.
Yeah. That's the term I hear most of the
Yeah.
time, calf, rather than bull. But I think they used the bull analogy because they were just trying to say if it was a bull, very strong, very masculine, very aggressive. Calf doesn't portray that quite as much.
Huh. I was reading ahead there.
What were you reading?
The next 3 sentences down.
Okay, read it out loud, maybe.
Okay, the same interpreters also embellished the Torah's report. They said that when one of Moses' loyal assistants, accused those who were speaking against Moses of being brainless fools, Aaron said nothing. As a result, the mob murdered her.
Wow. So Aaron lets his friend just die. Yeah.
Then they approached Aaron, warning that they would do the same to him. Fearing for his life, Aaron gave in to their demands, took their gold, and created the cat. Instead of taking the risk, speaking out, and providing strong guidance in the absence of his brother, Aaron capitulated to the demands of the mob. His lack of courage and leadership, these interpreters believe, brought about his people's shocking sin of idolatry.
Yeah, so even if this is overstated,
Mhm.
I can't see how you could feel that Aaron did a good job. And he did something bad, and God should have struck him dead, I would think, for any of this stuff. Nan and then Sai.
Well, when it says his lack of courage, uh, to the end brought about his people's shocking sin of idolatry. Do you think that maybe this is what caused the second commandment to be written, that you shall not have any other gods before me? Because here Aaron just, made it. I mean, aside from his being definite proof that he really was a week later, he just gave in and did what he was told or asked to do without questioning it. Because at this point, the Ten Commandments have not been brought down. The first set was destroyed, but the second set didn't come down. So maybe this influenced God in the rewrite of the Ten Commandments that we know today.
All right, well, so what do I do? I'm the rabbi here. I'm like Moses, a rabbi, and the board tells me they don't want to learn Hebrew because they're too lazy. They want all Hebrew taken out of the service. Do I tell them no? And they don't care what happens at Religious Practices Committee. That's irrelevant. They're telling me take out all Hebrew effective immediately. What do I do? So should I be like Aaron and say, well, they're forcing me, I'll better go along? Or do I refuse? And then they could, I don't know, they make my life, they won't kill me like they killed Hur, but they might make my life miserable. I'll get all these nasty emails saying, Rabbi, your services are not, we can't understand the Hebrew and it's making us uncomfortable, and I'll get upset. So what should I do? I mean, are leaders expected to fight against their followers if their followers don't want them to do what they think is right.
Can you find try to find a compromise?
All right, so I'll say, what about we reduce the amount of Hebrew by 50%?
That
So,
might be agreeable. I mean, depending on who the people are that are saying that,
Are
so,
they saying
so
that, or are you
you're,
just making this up?
But he's making it up,
Who
I'm
knows?
making it up, but it's a real life example, I mean, maybe not the Hebrew, but it's not just in Aaron's time that people come and demand things or they say things and, well, look at the politicians. If you, as a politician, don't say what people want, they won't vote for you and your career is over, right? I mean, is there a good example of that? I mean, yeah, like
You
Ben
had,
Sass, he was senator from Nebraska, and he was a Republican, but he was principled and he wouldn't go along with the trends in the Republican Party. He quit in the middle of his term as senator to become president of the University of Florida because he thought, he's not going to get reelected unless he talks the talk of what the people are saying they want. They have polls. They know exactly what percentage of people expect him to say this and say that. You know, and you either have to go with what the polls are and say the right things, or you're going to have trouble. So, do you have any sympathy for Aaron, or do you think that he needed to just stand up and if they killed him, they killed him, no big deal?
well,
Cy.
if we read the
Cy
next,
and then Marcia. First Cy.
At the risk of sounding naive, uh, I'm a little puzzled as to what the whole point of this is. When the authors wrote it, what were they trying to say? They were just telling us a story, but what was the meaning behind the story? I don't follow this at all.
Yeah, well, it's not clear. It's definitely not clear. It's hard to know what it is. How much is some of this true?
Right.
Is some of this polemic? What were they trying to accomplish? I don't know. That's a
Exactly.
very hard question. It's easier to answer what does this mean to us today? I can say, well, what do you think about Aaron's behavior? But to figure out what was the original intent of the writers, we have to know who they were, what was going on, and we don't know.
It just becomes a discussion, but it has no meaning whatsoever.
Right. Okay. Marcia?
well, I think when I want to read the box. Because
Okay.
I think it adds to the conversation.
Okay. Marcia's
Aaron
going to read the
refused,
box. Hold up, Donna.
can't
Oh,
hear you.
you're muted, Donna.
So I was.
There you
Um,
go.
just perhaps how easy it is for them and for us to be drawn away from God.
It was easy, but there were certain things that happened that made it predictable, right? Moses should not have gone away for so long. Aaron needed to be clearer and more supportive of her and others. They needed to wait till they were trained. So it was a result of negligence as well, I
But
mean,
probably, yeah,
Bob, I'm on Zoom.
but um, even though you say Moses should not have been gone away for so long, maybe he shouldn't have been, but he was, and the people were not faithful to him.
that's for sure. That's for sure. Okay, Marcia, you can read. Aaron refuses to take
Marcia,
responsibility.
you have to unmute.
I don't know how that happened. Okay, I said, yes, Aaron refuses to take responsibility. I said, this is a crazy paragraph. When Moses asked Aaron why he allowed the people to create an idol, he protests that he never intended to fashion a golden calf. It was all a tragic accident. He simply threw the gold into the fire to be melted down, and there came out this calf. He could not foresee the consequences of his acquiescence to the demands of a rebellious people.
All right, so
Does it say that in the Torah?
no.
And why did they put that in?
Well, it's a commentary from somewhere. But if I was Aaron, this is what I would say too. I didn't make a golden calf. I just facilitated a melting down the gold. We were just going to make a lump gold thing to hold, for like a bank account kind of thing. And then out came this golden calf. I don't know where it came from. Or the board wants less Hebrew, and so we got a new prayer book, and the new prayer book had all these Hindu things in it. I didn't know they were going to have Hindu things in it. I just thought we were getting less Hebrew.
More Hindu.
I had no idea about the Hindu stuff. I mean, I ordered the first prayer book I saw that said very little Hebrew. And then the books arrived, and then somebody put them in the pews, and that's right, Richard, you believe me?
He
He
believes.
Thank you, thank you. See, I've got, and if Richard believes me, I'm sure Cy believes me. Lily says she doesn't believe me. Says, how can you say this stuff? Oh, okay, Marcia.
Modern commentator Adine Steinsaltz agrees with this assessment of Aaron. He labels the episode of the golden calf the worst failure of his career. Yet, just as Yehuda Halevi sought to excuse the behavior of the Israelites, Steinsaltz offers an apology for Aaron. When he agreed to cooperate in the casting of the golden calf, he was undoubtedly proceeding along his own mode of leadership, given to compromise and acquiescence, with the accompanying perils of distorting the truth for the sake of peace. Aaron is willing to indulge in idolatry in order to pacify the people.
All right, this is not much better than what we saw before.
Right.
Steinsaltz is a very famous Israeli commentator. Just died recently, I
Okay. As Steinsaltz portrays him, Aaron
believe.
leads by
He's saying, pacify the people for the sake of peace. So when you do that, it usually leads to catastrophe. When you're threatened and you give in, it very rarely leads to a good result. Almost never.
Like Chamberlain before World War II in England, pacifying not the Nazis and saying peace in our time, right, until the Nazis invaded all of Europe. So
Right. Now, once in a million, that might work. It's not like it's impossible, but it's not likely. And like the bully on the playground, generally the saying is, if you look the bully in the eye and hit him hard in the nose, you're more likely to stop him than if give in to him and give him your, lunch money and stuff. But not always, but giving in doesn't usually the next week he wants more. He says, I don't want your $3 lunch money, I want $4. So usually it doesn't work. Okay. Marcia, back to you.
As Steinsaltz portrays him, Aaron leads by testing the wind, by sensing where the pressure is likely to be, and then rushing to carry out the expectations of others. His guiding principle is peace at any price, compromise to avoid confrontation. For that reason, he offers no argument when the people tell him to create an idol. He desperately wants to be loved and to be popular. If the price others demand is a golden calf, that's what he will give them.
All right. Well, that's in retrospect, that was not acceptable. not acceptable at all. And he also, if nothing else, he's responsible for Hur's death for not protecting her. When they came to her and Hur said no, they killed him. And Aaron said nothing. If Aaron had been standing shoulder to shoulder with Hur, hopefully they wouldn't have harmed her. And if they did, at least Aaron would have been, helping, trying to help. I do want to take a couple minutes. We have a few administrative things. So I guess this will be almost the end. Do we have one or two final comments about the golden calf? If anyone makes a golden calf on their front yard, Richard, are we going to expel them from the congregation or just double their dues?
They have to give a big donation to Bobby.
Oh, okay. Well,
Be-
they have to give a big
I think they need
donation.
to double their donations.
And they need to sell the golden calf and the
So-
proceeds go to the temple.
Yes,
Gold is fine now.
Now, the golden calf came from a piece of molten metal, metal, gold, to become a golden calf without being molded.
And if the board says to me, Rabbi, we're going to put a golden calf on the roof of the temple, am I supposed to say, no, I won't allow it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I.
Suppose you had a golden calf and then listed underneath that was the Ten Commandments.
You
What
can
would
see
happen
the
then?
sin of the people.
that's funny.
Well, following the Aaron's principles of leadership, if they want to put a golden calf on the roof, I'll say I must have been out of town on vacation when they made that decision. I came back and there was this statue on top of the roof. I didn't even know they were going to do it. Okay, there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to be away, so I need 3 volunteers to each lead a group. And then we also want to see if we can increase the numbers coming. So we'd like you all to recruit 2 friends to bring them with you. So those are the 2 things I wanted to just raise and discuss. Steve, maybe you can say a few things to.
We're starting, you're leaving on the 5th of March. So the first portion that we would need a volunteer for to lead us is March 6th. The Sabbath is for celebration, for rest, not work. And then the second one, which is March 13th, is accountability of public officials, which needs to be done today. And then the last one would be March 20th, defining sin in Jewish tradition. So I need at least 3 volunteers, or maybe somebody can double up and work together as a
Don't have
twosome.
enough people to double up right now.
Richard, can we sign you up for one of those 3?
No,
Oh,
I'll be around.
You said
okay.
no? No?
What was, I have a problem with the printout. So what is the, March 6th I have, and I don't have the, wait a second. I don't have the others, and one was wait, let me get a pencil.
March 13th and March 20th.
Let me look at my calendar first of all. I can't see why not, but let me just check. But what was the topic on the 13th? What, the
13th,
13th?
accountability of public officials,
What page?
92 to 94.
And the 20th is what?
20th is defining sin in Jewish tradition.
All right, I'll take that one.
And what
Marcia
page
is
is
gonna
it?
do, Marcia's gonna do 320.
Right.
And what page is it in?
Hang on. Okay, so that was on page 101 to 103. No, wait a minute. Yeah, 101 to 103. And the one before that, March 13th, is pages 92 to 94. Accountability of public officials.
Is there a third one?
There's one before that. The Sabbath is for celebration, for rest, not work. Pages 88 to 90.
And that would be March 8th or March,
March the 6th.
It's a week from Friday.
Yep.
I guess that talks about modernity and how its things have changed on that.
Mhm.
Right. Well, so Leviticus is in here.
Yep.
And what page was mine on? Because I can't see it on my,
Here on page 101 to 103.
okay.
Okay. Evelyn, do you want to take one of the two?
I
No.
have appointments, so I can't.
Okay. Donna,
We'll
would you?
get Pam to do the other one.
I don't have the book there, and I don't know if you know or not, I have great difficulty reading because of eye condition,
Okay,
so
okay.
I'd rather not. But thank you.
So the one
Okay.
on page 101, that's Perik Bit, okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So that's pretty much one on, it's kind of on ethics, isn't it? So
Mhm.
put my sticky note on it.
All right, I'll take March 6th.
Okay, you're gonna take that one?
Yep.
Evelyn does
And we
readings.
need one more. Richard, can we convince you?
no, because I don't know if I'm gonna be around.
Okay,
Nan
So I
Roth
don't know which
or
day
whatever.
I'm not gonna be here or if I will be here.
okay,
So I don't wanna give you a yes and not show up.
right, okay, so let me check with Nan, maybe she will.
And check with
do
Pam,
on the
check with
13th.
Pam also.
Pam also.
Yeah.
I'll check with them and find out what they say.
I have to leave, sorry.
Okay. We're gonna do the final blessing and then we're off.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Baruch,
Baruch
Atah
atah Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu melech
melech
haolam
haolam,
Adonai,
asher natalanu
Amanu
not
Torah emet
B'chayei,
v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai
Noten,
notein haTorah.
Now that I've taken the Hebrew course, I can read all the Hebrew in our Torah. I mean, in our
We-
prayer book, the weekly prayer book. However, I don't understand a word it says, but that's okay.
that's because you don't want Hebrew. All right, we
Let's do
didn't
the
do the English, did we?
English.
Blessed
Blessed is
Adonai our God,
God,
ruler
ruler
of the universe,
who has
who
given
has
us
given us
given
the
us the teaching of
truth,
truth
planting.
and
and
planted
planting within us eternal life.
Blessed is
Blessed is
Adonai,
Adonai,
giver
giver of the Torah.
All right, I'll contact Pam and Nan, maybe they can do that next one, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Okay, well,
Alright.
thank you, everyone, and see you
And-
soon.
See everyone Friday night at the Kavod Awards.
Okay. Rabbi,
Yes,
I sent you that stuff and the that menu, as you say, the script for the Kavod Awards for Friday. And
right.
you got the corrected one. I
I
have
did.
3 different documents. One is I updated the recipients, which is the same as the Kavod Committee. the rules for getting a Kavod Award, and then this one that I just sent the rabbi, which is what to say that night during the program. So maybe what I'll do sometime in the next few days, I'll send it to everybody on that committee and hope that they can put it, I'll make a note, maybe put it in a folder so you all have this, you know? Because they keep just deleting it and I keep sending it, and including you, Rabbi. So you just have to change the names out on the program as to
right.
the new recipients, okay? So,
Okay.
all righty then.
Everyone have a good rest of the day and we'll see you soon.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Where you headed, Rabbi?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Mazatlan for biking, wherever I can get quick. But if I don't use the vacation, I lose it. So
I know. Best to
I
get it over with.
so I think so. We got two of the three,
Yes,
and we have to figure out how we can encourage them
more people,
to bring more people,
right. Okay,
because it's a very nice group. We just need to and if we don't get new ones, you know, at some point we lose old ones for various reasons. It's inevitable.
exactly. Well, people have a tendency to lose interest, so what can we do?
Well, it's natural, and other people have passed away, and
True.
so you need to constantly be replenishing.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording and